Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today we are finally going to take a look at all of the features and deliverables that had work finish in the month of November. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. And if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So each month I like to put together a video that takes a look at all of the work that is kicking off as well as finishing, just to keep us all more informed as to what work is going on in the background. Now, before we get to it, just because a feature on the progress tracker has work beginning or completing in a particular month, does not necessarily mean that it will release that quarter, the next quarter, or even in that year, as there could still be more work required from other teams, for example the downstream teams like audio, visual effects, and so on, or even priorities can shift and it can get pushed back until needed. It is, however, a good guide to see what could potentially come to the persistent universe when, but at the very least it shows us what work is being done at what time in the year. But with that said, let us take a look at all of the work that came to an end in the month of November according to the progress tracker. So first up we have AI Usable System version 2, and this is improving the implementation of the existing usable system to optimize the memory usage and improve performance when querying usable data at runtime. So this is more specifically regarding the performance and optimizations of the AI interacting with objects in the world, ensuring that they are as performance friendly as possible as the game scales. Hopefully we will even start to see these benefits in 3.18, or maybe next year in the upcoming patches we will see, but this had 46 weeks work from the AI Tech and Features team that completed mid-November. Now this next one is quite a good one, which is the AR and map mark system rework, which is reworking these systems to work with building blocks, which is the UI technology that helps with all of the UI in the game, speeding up the process of getting UI implemented on the features instead of holding up the feature itself, as the developers building the feature can create the UI for what they need it to be, rather than waiting on the UI team to get to it. It also allows for quick iterations, so if the UI needs tweaking, it can be done pretty much instantly. So great to see an important aspect of the game getting converted to building blocks, which was done right at the end of November. So the next feature is called Charge and Drain Tier 0, and this states it's all of the back-end tasks related to creating the first pass of the Charge and Drain power feature that will be used in future locations and mission updates. Now this is referring to batteries and items that use energy, like energy weapons, having them decrease over time, requiring us to either recharge them or replace the batteries. Now for locations, it's likely referring to the use of batteries or generators and such, helping us to get the power on in a mission point of interest, but it also is applicable to things like the multi-tool and energy weapons. And for the multi-tool, this will have a battery, and when you use a multi-tool, it will drain, requiring you to either swap out for a new battery or maybe recharge the old one, which in turn will create more thought when using the multi-tool in particular. So do you use it for the tractor beam? Do you use it for the medical attachment? For example, let's say you've been using it to mine with, and then you sustain an injury, but you have no charge left to medicate yourself. So managing the battery and energy weapons will be necessary, but also being able to put an energy weapon on your suit or in your ship and charge it back up again, or maybe even the magazines. So a very cool system that will drive more thought and preparation as we play, and this actually had 91 weeks work from the narrative, weapon features and weapon content teams that came to an end late November. Now the next deliverable to complete its work in November was Hacking Tier 0, and this mechanic was actually on the roadmap release viewer once in a time, but was removed, most likely because they wanted to prove it out in Squadron first, but this had 97 weeks work from 10 different teams, so quite the undertaking, and although I'm sure it's progressed considerably since we last saw it, back then the idea was kind of twofold. Firstly, a bit of a Pac-Man maze design in which the player must navigate through a maze-like program, avoiding sentries and finding whatever it is that we need to do, and then the second method was more akin to real-world hacking, in which you learn and use command prompts to bypass a system to gain access. Now it is said that it will be used in future locations and missions, and when in game will be used to access systems and areas that were previously closed off to the player and will be displayed on the player's HUD visor. And for the persistent universe, I personally would love to see handheld devices to perform the hacking gameplay, or potentially helmets specifically designed for that role. maybe even a helmet blade. That would be kind of cool. And just like all mechanics in Star Citizen, there will be a skill element where if you practice enough, you will get better and quicker. Again, this is likely to be utilised and proved out in Squadron 42 first before making its way into the persistent universe, but the fact that the work on it should have come to completion now on the progress tracker means we are much closer. So the next feature is Ladders Tier 1, which we have heard quite a bit about recently, specifically during the CitizenCon and partnered development talk, discussing how all the work going into Squadron will directly benefit the PU. Now, Ladders Tier 1 basically improves the freedom and control while traversing ladders, allowing players to aim and shoot weapons, use gadgets, heal and complete other one-handed tasks, but also the ability to lean and dodge to avoid gunfire or falling objects, as well as allowing for a greater range of visibility, like being able to look almost 360 degrees in any direction and jump off the ladder in that direction that you're looking. So it will really open up far more potential for ladder usage in game, like interacting with components for engineering at varying heights in a location, or accessing previously out of reach locations, and of course, not being so vulnerable on a ladder when there is a threat around. So a great feature that, once complete and working in Squadron, will certainly make its way to the PU. So next up is a feature called MobiGlas Rework, and as you can imagine, it is reworking the MobiGlas to utilise again the building blocks tech as mentioned earlier, which means developers will be able to create MobiGlas apps much easier and quicker. And this means that apps for game mechanics can come along much quicker as well. Instead of holding up that mechanic getting into the game, things like bounty hunting, cargo hauling, trading, and player reputations or service beacons. So a big win in many areas, and this had 44 weeks work from 4 different teams that should be done by now. So the next deliverable is one of 3 in this series, which is actually the second of the 3. And this is called Player Interaction Experience Tier 1. There is a Tier 0 and there is a Tier 2. This one specifically, the Tier 1, is lockers and inventory, and this is the task of introducing a consistent way to store clothes, armor and other items in a physicalized state, plus a more robust and tactile method of storing items on shelves and attachment surfaces. So this is building upon the personal inventory system that we have in game now, and expanding the UI to include lockers, taking it from personal inventory to physical inventory, which will be a big change from what we have now, meaning that if you place an item in a cupboard on your ship, you will have to return to that exact cupboard to retrieve it, rather than just opening up the global inventory of the ship like we have now. It will also mean that we will be able to properly decorate our ships, and eventually living spaces like homes, with items that we collect on our travels, being able to display them in our ships, on shelves and so on. So a great feature that had 32 weeks work from the active feature team. Now, Rastar is next, and this we actually had an update on a recent Inside Star Citizen, as this is the base building tool and it has reached version 1. Now this tool allows the placement of modular structures on the surface of planets and moons, and potentially, they did say in orbit as well one day, but includes the deformation of the terrain to accommodate them as well, and will eventually be used by us, the players, to place our own structures, such as with the Pioneer. So a very exciting tool, but we are already hearing about the benefits of this with 3.18, bringing in many more derelict outposts, and we also learned the Montreal Sandbox 1 team are being trained on it currently. Now this tool, aside from the enormity of how exciting it will be for players to build their own homes and bases, will drastically speed up the populating of planets and moons with outposts, settlements, villages and towns, and other locations and points of interest, and I'm so excited to see how this will increase going forwards, but also the potential it holds when it comes to player-built structures on planets and even potentially in space as well. So it is a tool with massive potential that had a whopping 99 weeks work from 2 different teams. So Stanton Fashion Clothing is next, and compared to the last deliverable, for most people, it is probably not rated that highly on the hype meter. But more clothing and customization options are always nice, as this allows us to express ourselves better in the verse. And as you can imagine, these are fashionable outfits from the Stanton system, some of which I believe are coming with 3.18. I'm sure I've seen somewhere a Moi Moi brand dress somewhere, I can't remember where. But as I say, more customization is always a better thing. Now the next deliverable is the integration of the Subsumption editor, which is to allow easier setup and debugging of Subsumption logic for the designers. Now this is to do with AI, as Subsumption is the system that drives the AI, so it's likely that this will make it easier for the designers to set up the AI and their behaviours in the engine. It was quite a task, as it had 89 weeks work from the AI tech and features team, but it should be done. Now there is one unannounced vehicle on the progress tracker completing its work in November, and this vehicle had 20 weeks work from the audio and visual effects team, which are downstream teams should mean straight to flyable. Now I don't think we've seen this vehicle or what this vehicle is, as both the STV and cutter are now already revealed on the progress tracker, so it sounds like it could be something new. When will we see it? Who knows, but let me know what your guesses are as to what it could be in the comments below. So the next deliverable is called Unified Item Ports FPS, and this is the process of renaming and standardizing character item ports to properly represent their capabilities. And this includes expanding their capabilities to allow for more types of equipment to be used on the current item ports. So what this means is making the attachment points on players' clothing and armor more clear as to what you can put where, and displaying this information in an easy to understand format, which will make customizing our characters in game much better. And this is, I believe, already in 3.18, as in your inventory you can tick up the various attachment ports. Whether it's the full thing or if it's just a few changes here and there, I don't know, but it certainly helps when choosing what to put on your character. Now the final PU-specific deliverable is called Virtual AI Service, which is a service that drives the logic of AI and is the go-between of the Subsumption AI and Quanta AI. Now this is a huge accomplishment, as if I recall correctly, will allow CIG to have AI generate mission content, like allowing bounty hunters to track an AI or rescue stranded NPCs via service beacons. So kind of a big piece of the quantum simulation puzzle to help not only populate the verse with NPCs, but also affecting the economy and who you will run into and much more. Now this has had 76 weeks work from the Systemic Services and Tools team, and here is hoping that in the new year we will have an update from Tony Zurevec about his progress. So to finish with, we have a couple of Squadron 42 deliverables, both of them being locations, and the first location is the Archon Station, or the Shuban Archon Station, which is that huge Shuban mining station, which a lot of the first chapter of the campaign seems to take place at. Now I hope we get a chance to explore this location somewhat, as it is kind of a monster of a station. Cannot remember how big it is, something like 6 kilometers in length, but it did take 99 weeks to get this done. And even if we don't have the chance to explore it in the Squadron campaign, I do fully expect them to utilize locations like this from Squadron 42, putting them into the PU one day, as it would be such a waste not to. So I can't imagine they wouldn't, but I'm sure when we get into it in Squadron, it'll be quite the sight to see. And the final location is the Macedo station, which is the comm array that we got kind of an in-depth tour of in the first episode of the briefing room. A very cool location that I think was said to have been fully set up as a functioning space station, but in the game is currently in the process of being decommissioned. So again, I look forward to checking this place out in the campaign, and after 91 weeks work from 6 different teams, it has finally come to an end. So, there we go. That is all of the features and deliverables that had work come to a close in the month of November according to the progress tracker. Some great stuff getting done, and I look forward to seeing it all eventually make its way into the PU. Talking of the PU, Alpha 3.18 has just released to Wave 1. I have been spending all morning trying to get in and get stuff recorded, but thus far I have been unsuccessful. I haven't even made it into the game. So I will continue trying, so do expect to see some gameplay videos of Alpha 3.18 once I finally get in there. But with that said, hope you enjoyed the video. Again, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, feel free to come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. We will be jumping in and playing 3.18. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.